Peter Valley, FBAmastery.com here. We're going to talk about a source that is among my favorite sources of used books in the world. I love Overstock stores, otherwise known as liquidation stores. They go by a million different names. These are very, very overlooked by Amazon booksellers because they kind of fall between the cracks of a bunch of other sources. So I'm going to get into what these are, how to source them, how to find them, everything. Let's get into it. Okay, so what are you about to learn? Well, number one, what are Overstock stores? They go by many names. I'm going to go through all of them. I'm going to tell you exactly what they are, what you can expect to find there. Number two, I'm not talking about Big Lots. Okay, this video is not about Big Lots, an entirely different category of source. Not talking about stuff like that. Number three, why these sources are so overlooked by Amazon booksellers. A lot of sellers I talk to don't really even know these exist, and I'm going to give you the reasons why. And obviously I didn't discover them, but they do kind of fall between the cracks of a lot of different sources. Number four, exactly how to find them. This is the hardest part because they go by so many different names. I'm going to give you a complete list of like words you can run through Google to find these stores in your area, and there's a good chance you might have missed one or two. Okay, so what are Overstock and liquidation stores? Like I said, they go by many names. These are really, really fun sources. like they're super weird, they're super chaotic, and it's basically, if you think of it as, these are the kind of stores where everything in the country, either from internet retailers or brick and mortar retailers that didn't sell, that nobody else wants, just trickles down to these Overstock stores. So kind of think of it as like the trough. Is that the word? What do cattle eat out of? The trough. The trough that all the other like tributaries on the country just trickle down to. All of the tributaries of like weird unwanted merchandise. I'm talking about like just the whole like stuff that just fell off the back of a truck somewhere and ended up in these weird warehouses, often in rural areas. I'll get into like where they are and everything here in just a second. But what do they carry? Let's talk about that. Well, they carry a lot of stuff, and that's why they're so fun. They're so chaotic and so weird. So these stores carry stuff, everything from like discontinued merchandise to expired food. You'll find like a lot of expired grocery products at these stores. Inventory that's been liquidated from like bankruptcies, like stores went out of business, warehouses that went out of business, entire companies that went out of business. Basically anything that could not find a home elsewhere that nobody else seems to want ends up in these stores. Okay, if you're liking what you're seeing so far, I have to remind you, you can build an entire business off of what I give away for free. So the two best ways to capitalize on this are subscribe to the YouTube channel, number one. Number two, hit the link below this video, go to FBAmastery.com and get all the free stuff you see here. All right, let's get back to the video. Now, you might be watching this already and you're just like, dude, I already know about these stores. That's cool. I'm going to give you some keywords to possibly find more of these stores that you didn't know about in just a minute here. But you might know about these, but if you don't, there's probably a couple of reasons for that. Number one, they can be really hard to locate. Like, you might drive by one and not even ever think it might be a source of inventory that you can resell. They go by so many different names. Oftentimes, they're just like ambiguously named, like so-and-so's discount store, and you're like, okay, why would I want, what is that? And you just like drive by, you don't even think about it. Number two, they generally only exist, in my experience, in economically depressed areas. So not necessarily like economically depressed neighborhoods, but generally like regions where there's a lot of poverty. Generally is where you're going to see these kind of stores. You're not going to see liquidation Overstock stores, in my experience, in affluent areas, like literally ever. Like, I've personally never seen it. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I've never seen it, and I've traveled all over the country, and I always look for these stores. So they're generally kind of like, you know, not necessarily rundown neighborhoods always, although often they are, but just rundown regions where even if the neighborhood isn't poor, the area around it is poor. Make sense? Now, if you're an Amazon bookseller, as I am, the only question you have right now is, okay, but Peter Valley, I understand they have grocery, and they have discontinued this and damaged that, but do they have books? And the answer is often, but not always. Which is one of the reasons Amazon booksellers miss these sources so often, is they're not very consistent. Like you could have like 10 liquidation stores and like maybe 6 of them will have books. But of those 6, if you go back a second time, maybe only half of them have books the second time because they just get what they get when they get it, and then when it sells out, they don't have it, and they'll have it again. And you might go to the 4 that didn't have them before, and all of a sudden they do have books. And it's just like very inconsistent, which is, you know, as an Amazon seller, if you're sourcing any kind of inventory, whether it's books or anything else, you know, consistency is like kind of important. Like, you don't want to be wasting time, right? And often these stores can be a waste of time, okay? But when they're a hit, oh man, are they a hit. And that's why I like them so much. I mean, I've just gotten shopping carts of books at these stores on multiple occasions. Like, not even say multiple, like dozens, if not hundreds. Like, I've been to so many of these stores around the country, and they're an absolute blast. They're just not very consistent. Okay, so good news if you're a bookseller and you're sourcing books at liquidation or Overstock stores. A couple things. Number one, when an Overstock store carries books, they often have lots of books. And I mean, like, they can have many, many thousands. If not, I've seen stores with tens of thousands where there's just literally a semi-truck full of books. They got unloaded on the sales floor, so they can have tons and tons of books. Number two, if you find a book that's profitable, oftentimes they will have 5 or 10 or 20 copies of it, so you can buy multiples, which is always a good thing with high demand books. Now, before I get into how to find overstock and liquidation stores, I have to mention these are not for the faint of heart. Oftentimes, okay, some of these stores can be like a cross between like the apocalypse and like rummaging through like a third world landfill. Like they can be really, really bad. Sometimes these stores are just like bins, and you're just digging through, like, again, like you're like in an Ecuador landfill or something. They can be really, really disorganized and chaotic. And then sometimes you'll find some of them that honestly are really well organized. And to me, that's always a bad sign. Like, I don't want the well organized ones. I want the completely chaotic, apocalyptic overstock stores, because that's where I tend to find the best stuff. You know, some of the stores, they're trying to be big lots. And anytime I see a store that's trying to be big lots, I want nothing to do with it. You can still get a profit sometimes with those, but man, I like the crazy, like the crazier the better. And the more dehumanizing of an experience it is, the more money I tend to make. That's a rule of thumb. And if somehow you missed my warning at the beginning of this video, I gotta mention again, if you're thinking, oh yeah, I know overstock stores, I know liquidation stores, I've been to big lots. No. We are not talking about big lots. Purge that from your mind. This is an entirely different category of source. Theoretically, big lots is kind of what I'm talking about, but in reality, in practice, like, not at all. Like, a big lots is basically a store that is sanitized of anything interesting, okay? Anything that's not mainstream, anything that has the slightest blemish on it. It's just like the most boring possible version of what I'm talking about. So just forget big lots, not what we're talking about. Now, why do so many Amazon booksellers overlook overstock stores? Now, I'm not saying I invented it, and you might be watching this like, dude, this is old news to me. And cool, I'm happy for you, okay? But I do know a lot of Amazon booksellers do miss these because they're so difficult to find. One, they go by many names. Like, you could drive by one of these stores and not even know what it was. Number two, and I'll get the list of names here in just a second, like words you can run through Google. Number two, they don't consistently have books, as I said. Number three, the inventory can be sporadic. They might have books one visit and then not another, and you're just like, this is super annoying. Another one, they can be hard to search for, and I mean, like, in terms of Google, they can be hard to search for because they're just not easily categorizable. So I've seen Google classify them as like many different like business classifications, and it just becomes like they're hard to track down. Another one, they're usually not chain stores. So a lot of people just like to go to chain stores because they're consistent. But I've seen these where, you know, most of what I'm talking about here are like one-off stores. A lot of times what you'll see is they'll be a local chain, so there'll be like 2 or 3 or 4 of them. There's some of these chains that exist in multiple states, but there's like definitely no nationwide version of what I'm talking about, and they're usually not chains at all. And then lastly, they usually only exist in certain areas, and I kind of mentioned this, like, generally, and I mean, there's certain parts of the country where I've never seen these, like in the Pacific Northwest. For some reason, I've never seen one of these stores. I'm sure they exist, I've just never seen one. And then you go to like the Deep South, and they are everywhere. So it's entirely possible the part of the country you live in doesn't even have one of these, although I doubt it. Okay, this is probably the most important part of this video. What are the keywords you can use to run through Google right now to find these stores? Because just Googling overstock store is probably not going to do it. Okay, so here's the list. You want to write this down. Number 1, the word overstock. Number 2, the word surplus. They sometimes, not very often, go by surplus stores. 3, liquidation store is another common one. A closeout store, a wholesale store, and a discount store. You're going to write these words down. These are all words you're going to run through Google, and sometimes these stores will pop up under one word and not any of the others. So this is like, and I'm probably missing some words here. Go ahead and comment below if there's a word you're thinking of that like I missed somehow. But I think this should pretty much cover what I'm talking about. Between all these words, you'll be able to find every overstock and liquidation store in your area. And as a fun bonus, the thing you have to understand about these stores is that turnover is king with these stores. They get inventory from really cheap, and they just want to get it out the door. So particularly if you're a bulk buyer, you're buying a lot of stuff at once, you can find the manager, and this has worked for me very well on many occasions. Flag down the manager, just be like, dude, look, I'm about to buy all this stuff. Like, can you make me a deal? Very, very often they'll make you a deal because they just want to get the stuff out the door. So that's it, you guys. Overstock and liquidation stores are among my favorite and also the most overlooked book sources out there. Thank you guys for watching. Don't hesitate to reach out for any reason. Peter@fbamastery.com. Okay, have to mention before we go, you can build an entire business off of what I give away for free. So you're going to want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, number one. Number two, get all the free stuff you see here on the screen by hitting the link below this video that will take you to FBAmastery.com, where I have free reports, free web classes. Again, you can build a whole business off of what I give away for free, so don't miss out. Thank you guys. See you in the next video.